The Monk is one of the most fun classes I've played in any ARPG, and today I'm bringing you my Ice Lightning hybrid leveling build that will take you all the way through the 6 acts of the campaign. What most people struggle with are bosses in the campaign, but this build makes a complete mockery of every single boss. With this setup you can nuke them in seconds, meaning you'll fly through the campaign. It's also a very agile melee class that can move between packs of enemies very quickly, so even general gameplay feels silky smooth. We also cover how you can make the early leveling process with the Monk feel incredible with a melee setup, so you don't have to switch to Lightning Arrow for the first 14 levels. I don't know about you guys, but I rolled a Monk to play melee, so playing Lightning Arrow for the first 14 levels almost feels soul destroying, so let's avoid that so you can start enjoying Monk for what it truly is right from the get-go. So at level 1 you'll start off with a basic melee attack, Quarterstaff Strike, which doesn't use any mana, along with your first skill, Falling Thunder, which slams the ground in front of you with a lightning attack. The first uncut skill gem you get, you want to unlock the skill Glacial Cascade. What this does is it fires out a straight line of ice, and at the top of the line it culminates in a large ice spike. The highest damage from this skill is achieved if you position yourself at the right distance from the enemy so that the tip of the attack with the ice spike hits the enemy. Some people don't like Glacial Cascade, but for the early levels, especially for early level boss encounters, it is a godsend because it allows you to damage enemies whilst maintaining a safe distance, which at low levels when you have poor survivability is amazing. Glacial Cascade makes that first boss fight against the Devourer so much easier as a result. For Glacial Cascade, I added in the Cold Infusion support gem to boost its damage by 25%. Falling Thunder you still use against enemies that are close up against you. With your next skill gem you want to unlock Killing Palm. When an enemy is on low health, they will have a blue marker above them, meaning you can instantly kill them with Killing Palm. Each time we kill an enemy with Killing Palm, we gain a power charge. Killing Palm also dashes towards enemies, so it's a great movement tool for early levels when dashing between packs of enemies. I added in the Life Drain support gem to Killing Palm so we can recover 12% of our health every time we cull an enemy with Killing Palm. This adds healing to the early leveling Monk, allowing you to survive so much more. Now power charges make our Falling Thunder much stronger. The more power charges we have, the bigger our slam with Falling Thunder. So now we have a pretty fun gameplay loop. Use Glacial Cascade from far away to lower enemies' health, use Killing Palm to finish them off and gain power charges, then use Falling Thunder with power charges to destroy large packs of enemies. We can make this even better with the Perpetual Charge support gem, which we add to Falling Thunder, so we have a 35% chance not to consume power charges, so on several occasions you can use a juiced up Falling Thunder multiple times in succession without needing to build up power charges. The final skill gem you want to add to this gameplay loop is Frost Bomb. Frost Bomb lowers our enemies' resistances to cold damage by 20%, so Glacial Cascade, and eventually when we unlock our main skill Ice Strike, becomes much more effective. Frostbomb also detonates for a considerable amount of damage, especially in the early levels, so it's very useful for bosses. We add in the Spell Cascade support gem here so we can create a triple Frostbomb every time we use it. So for bosses and stronger enemies, you want to start off the engagement by using Frostbomb first to lower their resistances, before you start spamming Glacial Cascade from a safe distance. Later on when you get a level 2 support gem, you can also add in the Strip Away support gem to Frostbomb, meaning it will lower enemies' cold resistances even further. So Frostbomb, Glacial Cascade, Killing Palm and Falling Thunder should get you through most of Act 1. When you kill the King of the Mist boss in Act 1, you should also get your first 30 Spirit. And when you do get your first Spirit Gem, you want to use it to get Herald of Ice. This is a buff which will add a further explosion when shattering any frozen enemy. At level 14, ideally before the Act 1 boss fight with Count Geonor, you want to switch your skills into what will become the main setup for the rest of the leveling build. You should get a level 5 uncut skill gem by level 14. There's a guaranteed one from a side quest or maybe even the main quest line in Act 1, and you want to craft this skill into Ice Strike. Ice Strike is our main skill and is a fast and powerful attack which converts 80% of physical damage into cold damage. This is the main skill for the majority of the leveling guide. On its own, it's incredible against single targets and it has great DPS, and it applies freeze to enemies. To make it even stronger, we add in the Martial Tempo support gem, which makes it 25% faster, and the Concentrated Effect support gem, which makes it 40% stronger but reduces its AoE effect. Don't worry, we don't mind losing the AoE capabilities of Ice Strike because we have another skill to make up for it, which is Tempest Spell, which requires a level 3 skill gem. Whilst hitting enemies with Ice Strike, you'll build up combo points, and after 4 combo points, you can deploy a Tempest Spell. Tempest Spell is what adds the AoE to this build. When you hit Tempest Spell, it will create a shockwave in a circular fashion which will allow you to destroy multiple enemies all at once. Tempest Spell is also incredible for bosses because if you position your Tempest Spell right on top of the boss, when you go to hit the Tempest Spell with Ice Strike, you will not only hit the boss with Ice Strike, but the shockwave from Tempest Spell will also damage the boss, almost doubling the output. For support gems for Tempest Spell, the first one you want to put in is Magnified Effect. This makes the shockwave effect spread out 40% more, meaning it has a much larger AoE circle to hit enemies with. I also added in the Font of Mana support gem, so within a 3-meter radius of Tempest Spell, we get 40% increased mana regeneration, which is super useful. So now for boss battles, you want to deploy Frost Bomb and then use Ice Strike 4 times, drop Tempest Spell, and then continue spamming Ice Strike. This combination of Ice Strike and Tempest Spell will let you solo Count Gearnor with ease and forms the foundation of the build going forwards. I did keep Glacial Cascade on my toolbar still for very situational uses, such as the first Ascendancy boss fight where you don't want to be close to the boss. So here the combination of Frost Bomb and Glacial Cascade was very effective. Although we don't use the Killing Palm Falling Thunder combination anymore, I did still keep Killing Palm on my toolbar as well, because it is still a great tool early on for movement purposes to dash from pack to pack before you start spamming Ice Strike. Our next big addition to our setup comes in Act 3 where we add Charge Staff to our build. Charge Staff is a skill which consumes power charges to infuse your quarterstaff with lightning energy, which adds lightning damage and a little bit more range to your attacks. The more power charges we have, the longer the duration of this buff. This is a huge addition to our DPS, it adds more range to our Ice Strike, and it adds lightning into the mix, allowing us to shock enemies as well as freezing them. Remember, shocked enemies take more damage from all sources, increasing your DPS. We don't want to use Killing Palm to generate power charges anymore, it's slow and it's clunky. So what do we do to generate power charges? Well, it's through the skill Combat Frenzy. Combat Frenzy generates combat charges every time we freeze an enemy, which we do so often with Ice Strike. So how do we convert combat charges into power charges? Well, it's through the passive Keystone Resonance, which states you now gain power charges instead of combat charges. So Combat Frenzy will now give us a power charge every time we freeze an enemy, which is insane. We also add in the support gem Profusion, so we have a 50% chance to generate 2 power charges instead of just 1 every time we freeze an enemy. So Combat Frenzy requires at the minimum a level 8 spirit gem. Sometimes you'll get a level 8, 9 or 10 spirit gem whilst killing enemies in Act 3, and as soon as you do, you should take off Herald of Ice and switch to Combat Frenzy with Charged Staff. However, if you're not lucky, then you should aim to kill Ignag Duk, the Bog Witch boss in Act 3, which should give you a high enough level spirit gem to craft Combat Frenzy. The Bog Witch will also give you a further 30 spirits. You can then run both Herald of Ice and Combat Frenzy together, which is what you should aim to do. For Charged Staff, I added in the Conduction support gem, doubling the chance we shock enemies, and the Persistent support gem, so our Charged Staff buff lasts longer, and we don't need to keep recasting it as much. Our final skill for the build comes again in Act 3 when you get your second Ascendancy, and that's Unbound Avatar. Unbound Avatar is a nuke button that for around 9 seconds gives you 40% more elemental damage and even more elemental ailment build-up. This is amazing for bosses. Once you've dropped Tempest Spell and have built up 100 Fury to cast Unbound Avatar, then using it before you start spamming Ice Strike is absolutely amazing for maxing out your DPS, so you can really nuke bosses in a few seconds. The final skill I added in was Hypothermia, which is a curse we can apply to enemies to lower their resistances against cold damage. With Heightened Curse, the curse is more powerful, and with Expanse, the curse area of effect is 50% larger. So for bosses, I would often use Hypothermia and Frost Bomb first to lower their defenses against cold damage as much as possible, before I started to spam Ice Strike, Charged Staff, and then Tempest Spell. For most regular enemies, using Hypothermia wasn't necessary, as everything was dead within a couple of swings of Ice Strike anyways. So by the end of Act 3, you should have these skills: Ice Strike, Tempest Spell, Charged Staff, Herald of Ice, Combat Frenzy, Unbound Avatar, Hypothermia, and Frost Bomb. We don't really change the skills throughout the Cruel Difficulty campaign, but what we do is we add to these previous skills. You'll be getting more Lesser Jeweler Orbs as you level to add your third support gem to skills. The first skill you want to upgrade to a 3-link is Ice Strike. Place the Primal Armament support gem here for 25% more elemental damage. Next, for Tempest Spell, you want to add in Font of Rage, which will allow Tempest Spell to generate Rage. Rage gives you 1% more attack damage per Rage. Then for Charged Staff, you want to add in the Overcharge support gem, so your shock is 75% stronger, meaning enemies take a lot more damage from you. In Act 3 of Cruel, when you kill Ignak Duk again, you should get another 40 spirit, taking your total spirit to 100. Now this means you can add the Clarity support gem to Combat Frenzy, meaning you can get another 30% mana regeneration. You can also add in one more spirit buff, and we chose the Wind Dancer buff, which gives you more evasion. It can also hit enemies when enemies hit you with a melee attack. Add in the Culling Strike support gem here, so that sometimes this can randomly kill weak enemies. This setup will let you blast through the cruel difficulties of the game and get you to maps with ease. Let's move on to the passive tree. I'll try and break it down in the order you want to get your passives, so that you know which passives you want to go for first and when you need to get certain passives for the build. A lot of leveling guides focus on starting the monk tree with these attack speed nodes and small damage nodes. Don't do this. When you're low level, the energy shield this path here provides is going to be a lifesaver. Come here and get Step Like Mist, then get Mindful Awareness. This should give you a decent 30 to 40 energy shield in the early levels, which is going to help you survive a ton. Then you want to immediately get Life from Death. This is going to be our main source of healing. The more things you kill, the more you'll keep up your life. Then we get Crashing Wave for more damage, Flow State for more mana regeneration, and Essence of Mountain for more freeze buildup. We don't get Essence of the Storm yet, we get it later. Any lightning based passives are better unlocked later when we get Charged Staff. Then you want to come up here and unlock Echoing Frost. Similarly, Echoing Thunder we unlock later. Come back down and come up here and unlock Killer Instinct for more attack damage, Tenfold Attacks for more attack speed. And at around this time you should be nearing Act 3 so you can get Combat Frenzy and Charge Staff. If you are around Act 3 then get Resonance as soon as possible. If you aren't near Act 3 at this point however, then you want to delay getting Resonance until you are in Act 3. Once you've unlocked Combat Frenzy, Resonance and Charge Staff, then you want to go back and get those lightning nodes I talked about earlier. Then you want to come down here and get Blinding Strike, come across and get Sharp Sight, Serrated Edges and Manifold Method. Then come down here and get Calamity for more cold damage, Martial Artistry for more critical damage bonus and one with the Storm, Whirling Assault and one with the River for more freeze buildup. This dual socket I didn't use anything whilst leveling, but if you do have some spare Exalted Orbs, buying a Sapphire with mana on kill will really help with mana issues. Gems with 2% mana on kill can go for 1 or 2 Exalted Orbs, so it's well worth socketing that in. Then for the final few levels, as you finish off Cruel difficulty, get these elemental damage nodes here, and go for all these critical hit damage and critical hit chance nodes. In terms of ascendancy points, we're going to assume you have 2 ascendancies for the purpose of leveling. Go for the I Am the Blizzard for more cold damage, and this also allows you to unlock Unbound Avatar, which as I mentioned before is your nuke button against bosses. Finally, moving on to gear, the biggest thing I'll say whilst leveling a monk is if this is your first character and you do get a few Exalted Orbs whilst leveling, I highly recommend spending 1 Exalted Orb every 20 or so levels for a good quarterstaff. This will massively boost your damage output and make killing enemies and bosses really easy. If this monk is an alt, well then it's a no-brainer. 1 Exalted Orb for a staff every 20 levels is so worth it. You want to look for a quarterstaff with increased physical damage rolls. Percentage increased physical damage and flat physical damage are really good affixes, because remember Ice Strike converts 80% of physical damage into cold damage. You also want to look for plus levels to all melee skills, which is also going to up your damage considerably. If you have those 3 affixes on your quarterstaff, the campaign is going to be a breeze. The other item I'd highly recommend buying is boots with movement speed. You ideally want boots with 20% plus movement speed, which will make leveling so much faster as you traverse the map and making evading attacks with bosses so much easier as well. For the rest of your gear, prioritize resistances, maximum life, and energy shield affixes so you can survive. So there you have it, my Ice Lightning Hybrid Monk leveling guide that will take you from level 1 all the way through the campaign until mapping. It's fast, it's destructive, and it makes an absolute mockery of every single boss in the campaign. If you enjoyed what I talked about today, remember to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for more Path of Exile 2 builds. I'm Mr. Ronit, and that's it for today. Peace out, guys.